Hey, hi, welcome to the Elite Performance channel. And I'm proud and glad to say that this is the first ever episode of the Elite Performance channel podcast that I've started. Now, this is a space where leaders, achievers, top performers share their insights. And I'm your host, Sakti, and together we'll uncover basically focusing on mission, mindset, and mastery that drive industry giants to thrive under pressure. So it's not about me just sharing my own experiences, but we're going to get industry giants to come over and share their personal experiences. And also, we can take the opportunity to see certain areas that we can model them and certain areas that we can pick up from them. And I'm just going to start this podcast, the first podcast, to just introduce why I started this podcast in the first place and what is the belief and the rationale behind this. So it's going to be a very short one. Now, let's talk about why this podcast exists. Now, when a lot of people told me that Sakti, you have done a podcast before, live streamings on LinkedIn and so on. So why don't we start it again? Now, my purpose was not to just start a podcast just to market myself out there. It has to have a very clear mission in terms of what I want to give to the viewers and the audience. So that's when I was preparing for this podcast for the longest of time. And I'm glad to say, as I said earlier, that I am here to start this podcast. Now, let me just share the purpose. Now, personally, I believe that elite performance. Now, first of all, when I say elite, I'm not talking about being the best in the industry, professional athletes, and so on. Now, when I say elite performance, I'm talking about being the best version of yourself in whatever you do. So it could be, if you're a sales professional, it could be, sales for the matter of fact. If you're a leader, it's about how you can actually perform in an elite level in terms of taking care of your team and performing as a team. And if you are aspiring speaker, how can you bring yourself to the next level to be an awesome speaker, to be paid well, to be out there, to market yourself and so on. And so the list goes on, because anything that requires performance and you are there to do it, then it's about you doing it to the highest and best version of yourself. And that's my clear definition of elite performance. Now, why do I say this? Because along the years, I've heard a lot of people telling me, Sakti, I don't think I'm in the level of elite yet, or I don't think I'm even in that level at all. So I would like to just share that along the years, my personal experience is that I started off going with the flow, no clear purpose, and didn't know whether if I'm capable of doing things that now that if I look back, I'll be like, wow, how did I ever do that, right? So I just want to be clear that elite performance is not reserved for the few. It's not for the talented. It's not for the exclusive group of people, but it's for every one of us. But provided we are willing to pay the price, which is hard work, investment in ourselves, and consistent in terms of taking actions. Now, that is something that you got to do. So it is possible for any of us to do that. And now let's talk about this chat itself. So as I said, so this podcast exists because I would like to actually call in industry experts, people who are awesome, whether they are speakers out there, doing extremely well, whether they are leaders who have achieved immense results in terms of their performance as business owners and so on, right? I mean, the list can go on. They could be athletes, professional athletes who have performed the highest level. So we're going to get them to come for this podcast every week. It will be actually streamed on every Tuesday. I'm actually doing it at 8 p.m. Singapore time so that it will be convenient for friends and listeners over at India and all over Asia to follow this podcast. So it could be either recorded or it could be live, depending on the guest convenience, the guest speaker's convenience. But either way, it will be always streamed either live or recorded on Tuesdays at 8 p.m. So if you don't hear or you don't see anything happening on a Tuesday, 8 p.m. on LinkedIn, Facebook, or my YouTube channel, then you can always DM me and say, Sakti, what's happening? Why is it not happening? So my intent is to at least have 50 people to come up on this podcast, 50 professionals, industry giants to come on this podcast to share their personal experience, and at the same time to share nuggets of wisdom and tools that we can straight away take away and use it on the ground the next following day or the day itself. Now, that's the number one mission of this podcast. Now, then let's talk about what listeners can expect. So, if you look at it, whatever when I plan for this podcast, I actually follow this concept of the triple M strategy. The triple M being mission, having a very clear purpose in whatever we do, which even this podcast follows the same format in terms of having a mission, and of course the mindset. Now, anything we do, mindset is the number one thing. Now, I just want to share something about mindset. Now, along the years, I've always had people telling me that, hey, Sakti, if you want to do something, you need to be resilient. Yeah, I mean, I'm sure you can resonate this, right? Resilient, but how can I be resilient? You need to be disciplined. Yeah, okay, I need to be disciplined, but how can I be disciplined? You need to focus. Cool, I need to focus so I can perform well. But the question is, how can I focus? So it's very generic, very surface level, right? We always hear that you need to have growth mindset. You shouldn't have fixed mindset. You need to have abundance mindset. You need to have solution oriented mindset. So the list can go on. Now, what irritated or frustrated me was, yes, I know, but how do I go about doing that? How do I go about training my mind and myself to be able to achieve that? Now, that was something that I was always thinking about. And when I look back at my journey, whether as an airborne ranger in the military or as an entrepreneur who went to the lowest level of being broke and then had a breakthrough through my triple M strategy, and then I became $1 million roundtable, I started a speaking business and so on. Or even on my personal health and wellness side of the house, I decided to embark onto marathons, and of course the mission was to go for the Ironman triathlon race. When I was in triathlon, I was thinking, since I'm going to be in triathlon, then why not be the best? So I was inspired by many elite performers who are currently, and one of my mentors just did his Ironman yesterday, and he's now currently an Ironman. And I think he has a whole list of Ironmans that is cleared, but I think every Ironman is a race by itself. But going back, so when I looked at it, when I asked myself, how did I do? I knew that I could do certain things. I knew that I had certain mindset, but I was never able to decode it. I was never able to transfer this skill set. I just felt that it just comes naturally, right? Just do it all. That's what they say, right? So that was what was bothering me. So I think in this interview, as I said, recorded or live with these industry leaders. Now I will be asking them certain questions so we can tap on how we can decode certain things they are capable of doing, whether in terms of mindset and what do they do, and how can us as listeners can take this back and apply this in our day-to-day life. And the whole idea of this podcast is to keep it simple for us to understand and simple for us to apply. I think that's the thing, right? Simplicity is the key. So that's the whole intent. And I think when I talk to I choose my guest speakers, and we had a conversation. We always have a conversation before the podcast, and I always tell them, look, I need you to think of practical strategies. Which are rooted in science, psychology, and experience, whatever is it. But it has to be practical strategies so my listeners can apply. And so it's not going to be a motivational podcast where you see people, coming here to just rah-rah and say, come on, we can do it. But it's about how we can do it. And in fact, one step ahead is why we need to do some things and why are they able to do some things that they are doing, right? So to understand that. So in order for us to do that, I think one of the key thing was I decided before this podcast to spend some time and invest in my resources and go over to many places. And one of it is, of course, in India, to really learn about the tools of neuro-linguistic programming and how I can apply this to decode this. And currently, that's what I'm using. And this is the principle, and these are the tools that I even talk to my coaches right now, and they have seen extreme results and outcomes from whatever they were to where they want to be. So that's the whole idea. So the mindset, we can work on our mindset. We can talk about how we can bring our mindset to the next level to be able to achieve the mission, the purpose that we want to really achieve. Now, the third one is, of course, we always are willing to invest resources and time to go for training, to upgrade our skill sets and so on. Now, here we are talking about focusing on the transformation ahead. As I said, right, where we are and dare to have a very, very big, huge goal All right, it could be so huge that any goal that doesn't scare you means it's not a worthwhile goal, right? I mean that's my belief at least. I'm sure some of you will resonate. I had coffee with a lot of you, and you did agree. So this is where when you have a very very high goal, then the question is why you want to achieve that. And we talked about mission, right? And then how you can do that. And this is where we talk about the mindset. And of course, the third thing is now, what are the tools required? What are the skill sets required? And what are the knowledge required? And who are the people who can be your potential mentors or coaches to be able to bring you there, to be able to guide you there? I think this is where it is about how do we invest our resources in the right training, right place, and with the right person. I think this is where we are talking about mastery. Once we are clear of our why, once we are clear of what we want to do, and once we have the correct mindset and a clear intent why we want to do, and then the next thing is who are the people and who are the or what are the trainings that I want to specifically invest so that I can refine my mastery and to be able to achieve that. So this is where I will tell listeners that it's always about the intent to rise above. Now, it's okay to be, mediocre. But what I mean is you need to have an intent to rise above mediocrity, which all of us deserve, because it is something that we make a choice. It's a choice, and we can make a choice. And I made my choice many, many years ago, and things has been excellent. Now, were there challenges? Yes, definitely. But I think one good thing was that because my intent was clear, my purpose was clear, or my mission was clear, and I adopted certain mindset, which initially I did not even know, maybe by virtue of the training I had in the army and so on. But over the time, I realized that I was not able to decode it and talk to a lot of people about how they can apply that. So next is mastery. So we will also, I will also be sharing certain possible trainings, or even bring excellent trainings to this platform where I can show what are the other trainings you can go and so on. So I'll share this as we move on. So, and so as I said, one of the key focus of the whole interview will be focusing on the Triple M framework. So when I interview individuals, what we are doing is that we are seeing the guest speakers as a model of excellence. And once we see them, what we're going to do is that we're going to ask them questions in terms of their mission, their mindset, and their mastery, and then the practical tools of how they adopted that to be able to perform to the highest level of their capacity and capability. And when we have that in hand, then that's where we practice. So this is the whole intent for this podcast. So, and I wanted to share this to you all. Why? Because I think it is important that anything we do, the clarity has to be there. And that's the reason I was here. So I hope to see you all. And on Fridays, I will be telling you who will be our next guest. And then once that is done, Tuesday, 8 p.m. If it's streamed live, please do all of you all, I'm inviting you to come over and even engage our speakers, because over the respective social media, whether my personal LinkedIn page or whether it's my Facebook page or YouTube channel, if you want, you DM me. If you need my YouTube channel, you can straight away give comments where I'll be able to see, and I can actually put it out and ask our guest in terms of, what are your thoughts based on your questions that you have highlighted. So in this way, apart from me asking them questions, there's a high chance or very high level of interaction from you as well. And that's the whole intent why I decided to do live streaming rather than just doing recorded podcasts, because I think the whole idea is interaction between the speakers and the viewers, and I'll be the bridge in between to try to make sure we can have that. And also, for those of you who feel that you have some guests that you would love to have, do feel free to DM me so that I will try my level best to bring the speakers or leaders up on my podcast. And that will be awesome, right? So just put up your wish list. As they said, you never know until you ask, right? So just put it up. And if I'm able to bring them, I will definitely, if not now, at least sometime in the future, I will strive to make sure that I can get these guests as long as they are able to provide the information and add value to our viewers. So with that, I think have an awesome week ahead. And I will be catching up soon. So our second edition or episode of podcast with the first guest will be next week, Tuesday, 8 p.m. So I hope to see you. With that, see you. Signing off, Sakti.